Hello. Welcome to more Higurashi. I'll post the link. Okay. Hello, who have we got? Hey Daisy. Alright, so, brief recap of last time, even though it's in the description anyway. We did some bullshit to win baseball in an upset victory, and then we celebrated our victory at a barbecue, and we learned some more about Satoko, and we met the coach. That's pretty much it. Let's go. Okay. Oh, forgot to pause the video preview. Morning, Keiichi. My! What time did you go to sleep? I didn't sleep well last night at all. My mother could tell from a single glance. I had the worst dreams. Nightmares, very ominous dreams, one after the other, again and again. I woke up after each one, but could never even remember a fraction of what they'd been about. But it was like those dreams were predicting something unpleasant, and I woke up in a terrible mood. Hey now, you're an all-star. Okay. Every day has been calm and fun before today, right? Those days should continue on, unchanging. And yet, anxiety was the only emotion growing within me. Why was that? Nightmares reflect your own anxiety. They show an uneasy mind that which you wouldn't admit to normally. Yesterday, I remembered the ominous conversation about Satoshi I had with Shion, Mion, and Rena. Right. My mind felt like it was in a black fog because we'd talked about that. If I lived every day without causing a fuss, my reward would be ever more peaceful days. I understood that. So why did I cause such discord? But now that I thought about it calmly, a simple verbal slip on my part couldn't possibly change the world. Yeah. As long as I'm sorry for doing it and never talk about it again, there's nothing that anyone can blame me for, right? Besides, how would my fate possibly change just because I talked about that? Nothing was going to change. Yeah, nothing would change. Nothing would change. Nothing would change! That's a creepy smile. If you're still half asleep, then go wash your face. I finally cheered up enough to smile, and Mom slapped me right back down. Now I was irritated again. There wasn't much time left before I had to meet up with Rena. I frantically started to get ready to go to school. Have a good day. Watch out for cars. There's barely any cars to watch out for. In Hinamizawa, anyway. I dashed out the front door. The morning air was far more refreshing than the water on my face. That's right, Keiichi Maebara. If you're sorry enough about it and reflect upon your mistakes, that's enough. Now let's pull yourself together and get to school. And return to fun, enjoyable days. Where everyone laughs, plays, and just has a good time. I'll be nice to Satoko as an apology, too. Yeah. Wasn't I supposed to be her Nini until Satoshi got back? Pardon me. Good morning. Keiichi-kun. Rena, too, looked like nothing she had seen. Looked nothing like she had yesterday when she said that weird stuff. If I could only forget, then I could still act like nothing had happened. So I called out to her with all the energy I could muster. Hey! Morning, Rena! Early as usual today. Morning! Good morning! There was little time before the same old morning homeroom began. But Satoko and Rika-chan were unusually absent. Maybe they went to play somewhere. However, looking over and seeing none of their things, so it looked like they really hadn't come to school. They're almost never late. Rena seemed to be enjoying herself, thinking about what their excuse for being late would be. Mion said something nonsensical as well, imagining how funny the reason they were late must have been. I'd only come to school to see their energetic faces, since I figured it would get rid of these feelings I have, but the load on my chest remained where it was. It wasn't very pleasant at all. Good morning, everyone. President, if you would. Everybody stand up! Our teacher finally arrived. Then finally I heard the pitter-patter of footsteps running down the hall. Clatter. Rika-chan was the first to run through the open door, and then Satoko didn't come. You're late, Furude-san. Where's Hojo-san? It was unusual for Rika-chan to be late, but equally unusual for Satoko, a ball of energy, to be absent at all. Everyone's eyes were wide at the series of strange events. Satoko may be a little late. Has she come down with something? The teacher walked over to Rika-chan and they started talking in hushed tones. Rika-chan's late and Satoko is absent. I guess crazy things can happen. You're right. But I wonder what happened to Satoko-chan. Is she sick? Why now, when I most wanted to see Satoko's energetic face? The unease that had been building since last night tightened within my chest. Kei-chan, you worry too much. Sometimes girls of her age can't help but stay homesick. Mi-chan, you're not supposed to say that around boys. Mion laughed indecently. Normally I would laugh along with her, but right now I just didn't feel like it. Homeroom ended, and we went to talk to Rika-chan in the short time we had before first period started. Hey, Rika-chan, you look so sad, so very sad, when getting yelled at for being late. I'll make sure to pet you today. I was very aware of my gloom this morning, so I strove to keep my tone cheerful. I petted Rika-chan's head the same way she always did, but she didn't cheer up at all. Me. What happened to Satoko? Did she get sick? For instance, she got a fever from playing around too much yesterday. If that had been her response, I would have accepted it in a flash. But the atmosphere around Rika-chan felt somehow heavy. It was a little weird and actually made my unease worse. Pardon me. That's my dinner. Hey, come on, come on! There's certain things you can't talk to boys about. Kei-chan, back to your seat, back to your seat! Mion, acting just like a club president, pulled me back to my chair. Rika-chan's gaze immediately fell back to her desk, and she hung her head gloomily. Rika-chan had said something odd, that Satoko might be a little bit late. They were living together, weren't they? Then she would have known for sure. She wouldn't have said might. I didn't understand why she was absent, and that made me all the more anxious. Damn it, what's going on today? It's like we started off on the wrong foot, and it wasn't going to get any better. What's the matter, Kichi-kun? You seem pretty down this morning. Rena noticed how I looked and whispered to me while the teacher wasn't looking. I mean, does an extra one mean anything extra? Like, I could, like, the reason that the description just says CW for all kinds of stuff is because I don't want to list everything, because I don't necessarily remember the exact topics that might come up in each individual stream. It's just like a general, like, beware. Like, again, if anybody needs to, you can go check the Does the Dog Die page. I don't know if it would split it by arc. I mean, you know, it's a horror series that has some upsetting themes. There are some serious things in this chapter. I guess take that to be our extra one in case you didn't read the description. Yeah. Then I noticed how oh yeah, sorry, I read this line. Do I really seem that way? Yeah. Even Rena's starting to feel down just looking at you. I thought of jokingly saying, "Then don't look at me," but I didn't even feel like doing that. Is it something you can tell Rena? I don't know what you're worried about, but if I can help, then you can tell me, okay? Yeah, so if you go to that page and there's something there that you're like, oh, I don't want to see that, and it's like, you know, if, I guess just assume that it's probably going to be that. I don't know. It's a tough line because I don't want to spoil anything. I mean, it's going to be pretty shortly made clear here anyway, but yeah, I mean, I figure if anything on that page is something like too upsetting to allow watching the stream, then we were going to get to it eventually, you know. But just, you know, viewer discretion advised, I suppose. I won't tease you. Lena said this, looking me straight in the eye. Until yesterday, nothing strange had happened, and it was a lot of fun. Huh? Lena's eyes widened for a moment, not understanding what I meant, but she remained silent and listened. It was peaceful and fun. Every day was lively. I never had any doubt things would stay that way forever. God. Yeah, you're right. Every day is fun. I'm sure today will be too. You sure? How do you know? Well... Lena, feeling perplexed, couldn't think of something to say. I didn't blame her. What I was trying to say seemed a little confusing, even to me. When I think about it, I've been anxious lately. Like maybe, since every day is fun, one day, all of a sudden, it would get really dark, like a light bulb turned off. Yeah. Arena kind of understands how you feel. Arena nodded gently. We've always been taught that it wouldn't only be good things happening to us. Sometimes I'm scared of what's going on behind the fun. It's a little bit sad, but because of that, we learned how to do our best to make sure that the fun never stops. I see. So it's not a bad thing that you think our fun lives might not go on forever, Keiichi-kun. Kind of like... like if suddenly there was a volcanic eruption tomorrow and everyone died. Hey, wait, that's terrible! If you were the only one who survived the catastrophe, Keiichi-kun, how would you feel? How would I imagine myself being that sole survivor in the ruins of Hinamizawa. Rubble and the bodies of friends lying in heaps at my feet. It was such an abhorrent sight. Was it sadder that all my friends had died? Or was it sadder that I couldn't have died with them? Usually found this sort of stuff. Upcoming things just hit a bit close to home. Okay, yeah. Just be careful, I guess. I understand. I'm not, you know, I think that's reasonable. So. I didn't know which, but I'd probably cry a lot. It'd probably break my heart. First, I think I'd cry. And then maybe you would think this. If this is my destiny, then I should have made sure every day before this was as fun as possible, so I had no regrets. I didn't want to consider such a horrible event to be my destiny, but I probably would think that. The fun times will end one day, and nobody knows when they will. It makes sense to live each day to the fullest, so that if it does happen tomorrow, you don't regret anything. Yeah. It's really hard to think like that. A lot of people take their everyday happiness for granted. They think tomorrow will be the same as today, so they leave things they could do today for tomorrow. They leave the kindness they could have shown today until tomorrow. Adana was usually cheerful and silly, but right now she wasn't like that at all. She was taking my troubles seriously. It was a little reassuring. But, Keiichi-kun, you realized it. I think that's a wonderful thing. So that unease you have, I think you should keep it close to your heart. Keep my unease close? Yes. Everyone might die tomorrow in a big catastrophe. So you should be really nice to everyone today. So when the end really does come, you don't regret it. Do you do that, Arena? Live like you would have no regrets if everyone died tomorrow? It was such a hyperbolic conversation, but Arena just gave me a nonchalant nod of her head. Arena knows what it's like for the fun times to end overnight. She knows there's no proof tomorrow will be fun, even if today is. I'm living life to the fullest. It seemed like Rena perfectly understood all the anxiety I couldn't put into words. And on top of that, like a reliable teacher, she showed me what to do. Ugh. Hey, Keiji Maebara, there's no need to cry now. Last night, I feel like I had a dream about Satoko. I don't remember what kind of dream it was, but ever since this morning, I felt anxious. Because you thought seeing Satoko-chan's energetic face would cheer you up, right? She was right on the money. If everyone had been here with smiles on their faces this morning, then the murk in my heart would definitely have been blown to smithereens. Then, if Satoko-chan arrives, you'll have to be nice to her. Actually, it's totally fine if you play your usual pranks on each other. As long as you're having fun. Yeah, you're right. So even if these fun days came to an end, I'd have no regrets. I couldn't tell if what Rena had told me had been comforting or just made me more anxious. But it was enough to make me think that if I saw Satoko again, I'd be honest with her. Lunchtime arrived, with everyone pushing their desks together like always. Satoko wasn't here. Despite that, we had bento boxes for 5 lined up on our desks. Rika-chan had made a bento for Satoko, too. Was Satoko supposed to be here before lunch? Rika-chan was clearly acting strangely. We were talking to her, but it felt like she was too far away to hear us. I'd never seen Rika-chan so downcast. So the rest of us started feeling down too. Hey, Rena, I understood what she had said before pretty well. When we were together, we were supposed to have lots of fun, so we wouldn't have any regrets if the world ended tomorrow. And yet, while I just resolved myself to do it, now we can't all be together. What the hell? Because it was just so sudden, wasn't it? I mean, yesterday was fun, so who could believe it would all end today? No volcanoes had erupted, and no earthquakes or fires had happened either. The cicadas are making the same noise they did yesterday, and the sun remained bright in the sky. It was the same normal day as always. So then, why? As I pondered, Harena's chopsticks reached in front of my face and stole the fried chicken out of my bento. If no one else wants it, Harena will take it. Delicious! Harena tossed the entire piece into her mouth and began munching on it, her expression one of bliss. I'm such an old man. Harena got a leg up on me. Alright! This old man's taking this bit of steak here. Me! All my food is gone except my rice. Rika-chan, also behind the curve, smiled again and went for someone else's bento. As I sat there, dazed at how quickly everyone had changed, Harena sent a wink over to me. Come on, Keiichi-kun. Live life to the fullest. That way, if a volcano erupts tomorrow, it'll be okay. This is serious! I'll be damned if dried plums and rice are the only things I have left for lunch. I'm taking that meatball! I stuffed the meat into my mouth and constructed a clumsy smile. I played along, as if trying to fool myself, but as I did, it rapidly became less and less of an act. Satoko still wasn't here, but at some point we had regained our lively lunchtime. We had fun, we smiled, and we fooled around, Thanks, everyone. This was definitely the best thing to do. This way, when Satoko suddenly dropped by, we could welcome her with our best smiles. The more I smiled, the more I felt the anxiety from this morning clearing away. Wasn't there a proverb that when something like fortune comes in by a merry gate? I think so. If it's true, then this old man will roll around on the floor laughing 24/7. Lena thinks it's true. If you laugh every day, it'll be fun every day. Lena has a way with words. Then, should we try it out? Everyone took a deep breath, then brought their faces together, locking shoulders. And then... Everyone laughed uproariously from their stomachs, trying to laugh out all of the bad stuff accumulating in them. By the time our bento boxes were empty, everyone was right as rain. Having heard our friendly banter, Tomita-kun and Okamura-kun walked up and timidly spoke to us. Excuse me, Maibara-san. Sorry to interrupt your fun, but... we need your help with something. They grinned dryly and scratched their heads. What could it be? Want to know how to remove the censor bars in porn magazines? Oh my god. By the way, don't believe what you hear about butter during the trick. Total superstition. You can't use an eraser either. I like the soundtrack too. Wait, what? Seriously? That's not what we're here for, said Tomita-kun, elbowing Okamura-kun. Actually, our ball got caught in the gutter on the second floor. We were thinking you might be able to reach it since you're tall. I see. Asking an upperclassman for help comes with its own price, you know. I'm not cheap. You can't buy me out so easily. Tomita-kun and Okamura-kun conversed for a short time, then gave their reply. We'll give you the right to take a nap during class, Maibara-san. How does that sound? What do you mean? I can sleep during class whenever I want. Why do I need your permission for it? They're 12. I think they're the same age as Satoko and Rika. And I mean, I think that's roughly the age when boys start getting interested in that stuff. Even if they can't get it legally. At least that's when they start wanting to look at it. Oh, no, you can't. The next time you take a nap, we'll take Sensei about it. I see. How sly. You little... Where did you learn to bargain like that? Sorry. It was just a little joke. Come on, Kei-chan. Why not just cave into your underclassmen's threats? And now Mion was getting on my nerves. Suddenly it came to me, and I took Tomita-kun and Okamura-kun's hands. Alright, I surrender. I'll get your ball for you, so give me all the rights to nap time. Huh? Yeah, that's right, it's the 80s, so no internet. Okay. Look, Mion, I now have the privilege. But you don't, do you? Tomita-kun, Okamura-kun. Tell on Mion as soon as she falls asleep. Got it? Yeah! Rena and Rika-chan began to cackle at Keiichi-kun's victory. I wasn't sure how the ball managed to get stuck up there, but it was planted firmly in the school building's second floor gutter. Hand me that stick. I should be able to reach it. Here we go. I took a bamboo pole and poked the ball with it. Damn, it's hard. Come on. Oh, he got it! You got it, Maibata-san! Thank you so much! The ball rolled down the gutter and fell down behind the school building. My underclassmen ran over in that direction, leaving me by myself. Mission complete, I guess. Sheesh. There was still a lot of time left until lunch break was over. Guess I should go back to the classroom. I'd absorb myself in a silly conversation with everyone and wait for afternoon classes. Just when I thought that and turned towards the entrance, someone suddenly called out to me. Hello there, good day. Sorry for bothering you during your lunch break. It was a middle-aged man I didn't know. Or maybe I'd passed by him a few times and I'd seen his face, but I didn't know him. When his half-smile deepened, something within me shuddered with fear. There was no basis for that, no reason, but I shuddered. I was somewhat confused about those emotions, not quite understanding them myself. There was one thing I could say, though. Nobody but teachers and students should be at school. This person shouldn't have been here. I felt less of a tremble and more of a sense of dread, like a caterpillar, brightly colored in garish, bilious greens, were crawling across my forehead. Oishi! A feeling of disgust that neither itchy nor gross could describe, as the frizzly, dreadful hair rubbed against my brow. I didn't even want to see his face. I wanted to jump backwards and run away. An unpleasant feeling, for which I didn't even know the cause. The other side of myself has nothing but questions. Hey, what are you doing? What are you disgusted by? This is the first time you've met him. It's rude to hate someone for no reason. No answers were coming. I held my silence, waiting, a damp sweat running down my forehead. When he saw that, Oishi thought maybe he was being intimidating and gave me a relaxed smile. Oh, please, excuse me. I'm no one suspicious, I assure you. I'm Oishi, from the Okinomiya Police Department. Wait, where did I put my card? Huh? What? This is... What? He fished through various pockets, then finally found his police ID and showed it to me, grinning dryly. I don't know how we knew his name slightly before he said it. I guess it was just a mistake in the script. He may have been trying to use those clumsy-seeming actions to ease my anxiety, but I could definitely say it didn't work. Why was I this nervous? There was a reason, of course. If I wanted today to be the same as before, then today didn't need someone who hadn't been here back then. The fact that a man who wasn't here yesterday showed up today meant that today would be a different day than those before it. That would mark the end of the fun and happy days. I gulped and erased that ominous conclusion from my mind. Calm down, Keiichi Maibata. It's just an old guy who looks kind of perverted and came from the police department. Don't go deciding that the fun times are over. He just came here because of his job. Yeah, just for his job. If he's working, then he would normally go to the teacher's lounge, right? The fact that he spoke to me, yes, it must have been to ask where it was. Are you looking for the teacher's lounge? You just have to go through the entrance and... I didn't want to look at this man for another second, so I started pushing things along. Oishi, however, didn't seem to have any interest in the teacher's lounge. Oh, no. I don't have anything to do there. Could I get you to call a friend of yours, if I may be so bold? A friend? Who? A girl. Could you call Satoko Hojo-san for me? My consciousness grew faint, like I was about to pass out. Yes. My anxiety was realized. The dreadful, disgusting caterpillar was looking at me, about to crawl into my ear. Its frizzly, dreadful hair was touching my ear cavity. That's how bad it felt. What do the police need with Satoko? No. It's nothing important. I just had 2 or 3 things to ask. I'd like it if you could cooperate with me. Why? Why, of all people, was it Satoko? How would a police officer come here in the middle of the day for something that wasn't important? This man was strange. I could smell it. And it smelled bad. Just a whiff of it made me want to grimace. I knew that this man couldn't possibly be here to deliver her lost wallet or anything. I couldn't imagine what he needed from Satoko, but it had to be something unpleasant. Keiichi being a tsundere. My throat stung with burning pain. Burned like a parched, creviced wasteland. The wasteland broke apart deep in my throat and brought out the words from deep in my mind. You may need something from her, but I don't think Satoko needs anything from you. Could you please leave? Oishi probably hadn't expected that reply. He stood there surprised for a few moments. I did as well. I hadn't thought words like that could ever come out of my mouth. Things might still work out. This guy may have shown up out of the blue, but if I drove him off, maybe I could make it so that it never happened. If I could do that, then I could get back the peace we had until yesterday. I could get it back. Well, you sure are strict. Are you Satoko-san's manager, perhaps? Can I not see her without an appointment? If you just want to talk to her, shouldn't you just call her? Barging into school in the middle of the day isn't normal. Breaking through a dam would have been the perfect analogy to use. Why didn't I like this man? This man shouldn't have been here. I needed to make it so that this man wasn't here. Childish, selfish emotions bubbled up from the depths of my mind, and they each came out of my mouth just as it had been formed. Not liking the guy was my own problem, but to say things so bluntly to him, even I thought I was crazy. Oh. You're the logical sort, aren't you? I'm not too good with people who talk like that. Oishi grinned and scratched at his sweaty throat. Even as he feigned stupidity, I could tell he was irritated. Hey, Keiichi Maebara, why am I looking for a fight with this old policeman here? It's not like he brought the gift of misfortune with him, all wrapped up in paper, right? Right. It wasn't like he had brought a package of misfortune with him and was asking me to sign here, please. Rationally speaking, I understood all that. So then why was I so... Finally, I outlasted Oishi in our game of silence, and he gave a big sigh. Then he addressed a few of my female underclassmen running around nearby. Excuse me, all of you. Do you have a moment? I'd like you to call Satoko Hojo-san if you could. My underclassmen tried to smile in reply, but they noticed the oddly stiff air atmosphere around me and seemed hesitant to give a quick answer. Is she not here? Satoko Hojo-san?
Hojo-san, she stayed home today.
Stayed home? His face remained smiling, but his tone was clearly one of ill humor. Such conspicuous spite caused my underclassmen, who had answered honestly, to cringe in fear. I see. Dear me, dear me. I'm quite unlucky. He was smiling broadly, but the way he laughed didn't make me feel better at all. When he noticed that his laughter wasn't getting anyone else to laugh with him, he immediately stopped. So, you girls, could you tell me the name of this boy here? He grabbed the girls by the shoulders so they wouldn't run away and crouched down to address them at eye level. The girls flinched away from the sharp, piercing light in his eyes, and in exchange for their release, they didn't resist and told him my name. I see. Keiichi Maebara-san, is that it? He said my full name. That was all he said, and yet I couldn't help but shudder. It was like he had grabbed me by the collar just with those words. Ah, could you be the son of the Maebara family I've heard so much about? I hear your father is a renowned artist. His works go on display twice a year in the great exhibition in Tokyo, don't they? I don't know what sort of fantastic pictures he creates, though. Then there's your mother. She seems intelligent, too. I heard she was a high academic achiever. She went to some girls' university, didn't she? It's amazing for someone that age to have graduated from a girls' university. Could your mother actually be the daughter of a respectable family? At least, those are the rumors, and they say she's a cold person because of it. Did you know that? She only went to the very first neighborhood association meeting, right? That's certainly no good. You can't disrespect your neighbors in a place like this. A sense of eeriness slithered up my spine. That was my first experience of true terror. I couldn't believe it felt this terrible. For someone you've just met to know everything about you already. Oishi clamped onto my shoulders and brought his eyes close to peer into mine. In a place like this, it would be far better not to make enemies, wouldn't it? If not... Ow! Oishi dug into my shoulders with inhuman strength. Ah! Then if something unexpected were to happen, you might see some drawbacks. Have you ever heard of karma? It's like how a butterfly flapping its wings can cause a tornado. Grudges born in strange places could come back to you in ways you wouldn't believe. You wouldn't like that, would you? Nobody wants to have a grudge held against them. There's nothing positive about making enemies. What's the matter? Your shoulders are very stiff. Should I give you a massage? See? Feels good, right? Ow! 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 This man wasn't just strong. It was like he knew exactly where to press to make me feel pain. Only 4 or 5 fingers were on my shoulders, and yet the pain made me want to bend over backwards. A few of the girls from my class were pretty shaken up, but didn't seem to want to help me. They weren't sure if they should go call the teacher. As for me, I couldn't take the time to wait until the teacher got here. It hurts! Would you mind leaving things at that? You're hurting him. Huh? What does that have to do with Keiichi? Shouldn't he say that to his mother? Oh, well, I mean, he's intimidating us because we were uncooperative. Behind Oishi-san, someone... To my disbelief, it was Coach. Oh my. If it isn't Dr. Irie. It certainly has been a while since we were last in touch. Discomforted by Coach's sudden appearance, Oishi laughed scornfully. The vice on my shoulders, however, remained as strong as ever. Never mind the greetings. Please, just let go of Maebara-kun. Oishi smiled daringly and glared straight at Coach. He didn't release me in the meantime, of course. I was just thinking of stopping by your place later, Doctor. You always seem so busy, and we can never have a good chat. Yes. If you want, I'll chat with you all you like. But please be sure to have a warrant first. After all, otherwise, I can refuse to go voluntarily into questioning. Coach didn't display a shred of the weird behavior he's shown at the baseball game and barbecue. He stared steadily at Oishi and fought so that he would release me. His chances were terribly bad, of course. Compared to the relaxed Oishi, Coach seemed like he was being defeated mentally. It made sense. Coach had a somewhat narrow stature, but Oishi's body was packed with muscles. It wasn't even a contest. But Coach was fighting for me without taking a step back. Beads of sweat formed on his face, and though he paled, he was fighting for my sake. Suddenly, Oishi laughed and let go of my shoulders. My body exhausted, I fell right onto my backside. Maebara-kun, are you alright? It's 9:49. I would hope no one's knocking. Yeah, I didn't hear any knocking. It was probably just random noise somewhere. Maybe it was a car outside or something. You can hear them really loudly in here. Ah, damn it. Ow. I rubbed my shoulders where Oishi had latched onto them. The pain from falling over went away quickly, but this pain was lingering. Are you alright, Maibara-kun? This is terrible. Shit. Ow, ow. I was just giving him a little massage. Maibara-san, aren't you over-exaggerating a bit? Boys have got to learn to man up. I wanted to retort, but I couldn't think of anything witty. Can you lift your shoulders? Are they in pain? If you're really hurt, then you should have a proper checkup. Let's just go to the nurse's office. Coach lent me his shoulder and walked beside me. Something bumping the mic, I don't know. What an exaggeration. I'd be the last person to do any sort of permanent damage. Right? I'm still an active police officer, you know. Oh, is it maybe this? That's just me drumming my fingers on the desk. I can stop if it's annoying. Come. I don't know what you needed to be here for, but if you're finished, then please leave. I'm going to complain about this directly to the chief, so please keep that in mind. Oops. Oh, that's a problem, ain't it? Oishi-san waved his hand sarcastically, pivoted around, and headed to the car parked by the school gates. Hey, Jamie. And without turning back around, he got in and started the engine. Damn it. Who the hell was he? Damn it! He's a detective named Kurado Oishi. And a hooligan. Everyone in the village hates him. Maibara-san, you should be careful too. Kurado Oishi. Just like I thought, my gut instinct wasn't wrong. Okay. He would be the one. The one to bring unhappiness, misfortune. Something that would ruin our peace. Shit. I won't accept it. All these fun days can't possibly end just because some guy like him showed up. I won't accept it. Coach seemed to be familiar with the school, so he brought me to the nurse's office without much trouble. The girls from my class came along as well, looking worried. Our teacher and the principal, having noticed the disturbance, came to see what was the matter. Maibara-kun, what's wrong? Are you hurt? Well, there was this weird man in the schoolyard just now, and Maibara-san... Coach gently interrupted the girls, trying to explain. You just finished rewatching Season 1, and you started Season 2, but you're going slowly. Fucks with me? Yeah, understandable. No. It looks like he just fell and twisted something. I think he's alright, but I wanted to make sure. If it's fine with you, I'll borrow the nurse's office for a bit. Please do, Dr. Irie. The principal gave him a deep bow. It looked like Coach was acquainted with the adults at school. He slid open the doors to the nurse's office, but there wasn't a nurse in there or anything. I'd figured. I'd never seen anyone but Chie-sensei and the principal working here. Coach didn't seem to mind the fact that there was no nurse, and quickly made his way into the nurse's office. He instructed me to sit down and started washing his hands in the sink. Oh, I get it. He's the coach for the boys' baseball team. He must be pretty used to treating wounds with first aid. Could you show me where it was? Are you still in pain? No, it doesn't hurt at all anymore. I'm fine, really. I rolled up my shirt and showed him my shoulder. No bruise, not even nail marks. And yet it hurts so much, I thought my shoulders would be crushed. Even the pain had disappeared without a trace. You've been feeling gross with a chest infection, so watching anime is all you wanted to do. Yeah, understandable. I hope you get better soon. I think you mentioned it to me the other day, but yeah. Make the most of your time and try to, rest up and relax, I guess. It hurts so much, but not so much as a bruise remained. It just means he's used to doing that. Used to it, huh? The next time you meet, don't provoke him. Nothing good will come of making him angry. If you go home with a uniformed policeman by your side, your family won't like that, will they? Well, you're right. Still, what happened? Why did you end up in a fight with him? He came up and said he needed something from Satoko. Huh? Satoko-chan? Coach's gaze lowered and his expression clouded a bit. Somehow that gesture seemed to be saying Oishi was bound to come to Satoko, and did, and that it was no laughing matter. Coach fell silent in thought. Quietly, he took a compress out of the first aid kit and put it on me. Does he still plan on clinging to Satoko-chan? He's a persistent man, I'll give him that. Like a snake. Coach mumbled to himself. Cling? Does that Oishi guy go to Satoko's place a lot? Coach didn't answer, but the lack of a denial served well enough. What on earth did the policeman, probably a detective or something, need from Satoko? What mistake had led a detective to cling to the sweetly smiling Satoko? Maebara-san. Oh, right. You just moved here, didn't you? Yes, I did, but... Have you heard anything about Oyashiro-sama's curse, and about Satoko-chan? Well, I knew a few things about it, certainly. Satoko's parents were dam proponents, and their accidental death was because of the curse. You mean that? Coach smiled thinly and dryly. So you know, he said, dropping his gaze. If I recalled correctly, there was an accident on a viewing platform at the public park she'd gone to with her family, and her parents died. And then it was just big brother and little sister. And then she was with Rika-chan, and, when they lost their parents, Satoko and her brother, Satoshi-kun, were given to their uncle and his wife to care for them. Oh, is that so? Their parents died in the accident, and Satoshi ran away, leaving only Satoko to start living with Rika-chan. I'd known that much, but this was the first time I heard they'd been brought to their uncle and aunt. Their uncle was Satoko-chan's father's younger brother. Unfortunately, neither of the couple were people deserving of respect. Coach normally picked his words politely, so when he came out and said that they didn't deserve respect, it really made me wonder what kind of people they were. As soon as Satoko-chan's parents came out in support of the dam, their uncle and aunt took on a lot of the shame in the village as well. They would never have welcomed in Satoko-chan and Satoshi-kun. I've heard that for the siblings it was a very rough life. Bit by bit, Coach told me about the numerous agonies the Hojo siblings had suffered at their uncle's house. As their guardians, their aunt and uncle sucked up everything belonging to their immediate family. Satoko and Satoshi were crammed into a small room, and their lives were laden with things that were miserable for both their bodies and minds. In the first place, since apparently their aunt and uncle weren't on good terms, there was no end to their fighting. And as if in revenge for that, whenever they saw Satoko or Satoshi's face, they would always find fault with them, scold them, yell at them, strike them, and take away meals as punishment. I still shudder to think about it. You've never known any Satoko but the energetic and healthy one now, so you probably couldn't imagine her face being so deathly pale, a girl always standing dazed in the shade of trees. I couldn't imagine it, and I didn't want to. That was how I honestly felt. But at the very least, Satoko wasn't like that anymore. She may have had a miserable life in the past, but it was different now. Something had happened to change that life. Last year, on the night of the Watanagashi festival, their aunt died. She was beaten to death by a deviant with a baseball bat. Rumors spread of the curse having killed an enemy of the village on the night of the festival. This death wasn't a simple homicide either. They whispered that it was actually Oyashiro-sama's curse. A few days later, the deviant arrested for drug use confessed to further offenses after the incident was resolved. However, though it was resolved, No one knew whether the part about it being Oyashiro-sama's curse was true or not. Their uncle is part of Hinamizawa, after all. He apparently grew incredibly frightened of Oyashiro-sama's curse and went into hiding. From what I've heard, he's staying with an intimate lady friend somewhere in Okinomiya. And Satoko and Satoshi. Were they released? Their aunt died, and their uncle fled. There was nobody left to torment the siblings then, but... as if picking up their torch, that man started showing up with alarming tenacity. That man? Then Coach lowered his voice just a bit, as if being aware of his surroundings. I mean Oishi. Oishi. The guy from before. The events that just occurred came back to me. The hard-to-describe ominous sensation I'd felt from him came back to me. He's a little strange. The chain of incidents surrounding Oyashiro-sama's curse have all been solved, and yet he alone doesn't want to accept that. Accept it? The incidents were all solved, and a detective supposedly with the police department didn't accept that? People say that something bad will surely happen to those he gets close to. In Hinamizawa, they think Oishi is Oyashiro-sama's... Kei-chan! The door flew open with a rattle and Mion came rushing in. Rena and Rika-chan came running in a few steps behind her, and then Tomita-kun, Okamura-kun, and a few more of our classmates. Kei-chan! Did Oishi do something to you? Are you hurt? Calm down, Mion-san. He's not injured. I only gave him a compress just in case. Kei-chan, are you really okay? Okay? Everyone was saying stuff about how you're being strangled. Calm down, Rena. He just squeezed my shoulders really hard. See, there's not even a bruise. Me. Jeez. What the heck were you all doing? We're friends, right? Why are you just standing around? Why didn't you help Kei-chan? Oh, we're sorry, President. Mion yelled at our classmates, baring her fangs. Tomita-kun and the others hung their heads in silence. Quit it, Mion. Tomita-kun and the others weren't even there. Stop blaming them. Damn it! Oishi! Mion kicked the floor with her heel a few times, her temper running hot. Our teacher, overhearing the commotion, arrived as well. Hey, come on, everyone. Don't make so much noise in the nurse's office. President, take everyone and leave, please. Come on, everyone. Let's get going. Keiichi-kun is fine. You too, Mi-chan. Mion was letting her emotions get the best of her, so Rena stepped in instead and led everyone out of the nurse's office. The detective from Okinomiya Station, Kuraudo Oishi. It looked like the first impression I'd gotten from him hadn't been mistaken. Satoko's absence had amplified the vague apprehensions I'd felt since yesterday, and Oishi's appearance basically sealed the deal. Alright, I'll get going. I originally came here for Chie-sensei. Ah, so you had something to do here. Sorry for causing you trouble. Don't be so humble, he said, smiling easily. There was a side benefit to all this. I was lucky enough to experience so much of your soft, silky skin, Maebara-kun. With the usual, for Coach anyway, parting words, he instead continued. Please excuse me. You weren't wounded badly, but please avoid putting pressure on your shoulders or anything along those lines. If you get a high fever or it starts to swell, contact me right away, okay? I don't think it'll happen, though. Oh, that's right, Coach. Before everyone came in, you were going to say something. About what people think Oishi is to Oyashiro-sama. As he was about to leave the nurse's office, Coach placed a hand on the door and stopped. Right. They think he's Oyashiro-sama's servant. They're just bad-mouthing him, though. Oyashiro-sama's servant? Do you know about the serial freak death incidents that occur in Hinamizawa every year on the night of the Watanagashi festival, otherwise known as Oyashiro-sama's curse? What? Freak deaths? What? Now that I thought about it, I did seem to remember overhearing Mion or someone in class talking about it like a ghost story. On the festival day in June, one person would always die, and another person would be spirited away, but they seem to call it demoning away here. What a fine story that was. I figured they made it up to scare me, but it was true? I don't have any idea who first suggested this, but at some point, everyone started calling Oishi Oyashiro-sama's servant. Why? Because the rumors go that he decides the sacrifices for the curse every year. Whenever June came around, Oishi would start paying frequent visits to Hinamizawa. Because Oishi had been persistently questioning most of the dead or disappeared people. 4 years ago, it was known that the victim of the dismemberment, rumored to be the sacrifice, had been seeing Oishi numerous times leading up to the incident. The sacrifices 3 years ago were Satoko's parents. Right before their accidental deaths, Oishi had apparently visited their home. The one who disappeared 2 years ago was Rika-chan's mother. And again, people know that before she vanished, Oishi had been talking to her extremely frequently. The one who disappeared last year, Satoko's older brother, Satoshi. Satoshi, too, had apparently been approached by Oishi many times before he vanished. And then this year. This time, Oishi was trying to contact Satoko? This isn't a frickin' joke! They're rumors, Maebara-san. There's just some rumors to that effect. I hadn't said that because of the rumors of Oishi being Oyashiro-sama's servant, or his contacting someone foreshadowing who would be the sacrifice that year. It was because the ominous hatred I felt towards Oishi was becoming more substantiated, more real. Today, Satoko, she was absent today. Oh, wait, really? That looked like news to Coach. I had thought he might have known why Satoko was absent today, but... Then I'll get going. You should go back to the others and put their minds at ease. You're right. I will. Clatter. Coach left the nurse's office and headed towards the teacher's lounge. New tips, research notes, and Oishi's post memo. Achievement unlocked, better left untold. Okay, view new tips. The Hojo family. Every year, Oyashiro-sama's curse claims 2 victims. This means that with 4 years in a row, there have been 8 now, but it's worthwhile to note half of them have been members of this family. Note. The curse on the 2nd year, a certain falling accident, involved the death of Hojo, a dam proponent, and the disappearance of his wife. She was pronounced dead the following year after being considered to have vanished under perilous circumstances. The curse on the 4th year involved the death of the Hojo siblings' aunt, who was then their foster mother, and the disappearance of the elder brother. The Hojo family is a poor one, and it's hard to say Mr. Hojo's job went very well. Apparently, upon re-employment via family connections, there was a plan for them to return to the home of the mother's side of the family. For Mr. Hojo, the eviction due to the Hinamizawa Dam project, and the payment of a large amount of compensation money, was essentially a windfall. Mr. Hojo actively embraced the Ministry of Construction's negotiations from an early stage, and was selected as representative of the dam proponents. It was rumored he had been bought out by the Ministry of Construction for doing so, but the truth is unknown. However, the dam's proponents were in the vastly outnumbered minority. In addition, as the Sonozaki family strengthened its own foundation and promised support against the dam, all of the proponents, save for Mr. Hojo, switched over to the anti-dam side. At this point, Hinamizawa was completely unified against the dam, and Mr. Hojo was held up to ridicule as a stooge of the dam project's proponents. He was, essentially, used as a scapegoat for the anti-dam coalition. In the end, the dam project collapsed with Oyashiro-sama's curse and the dismemberment incident. However, punishment towards the bitter enemies supporting the dam project continues to this day. There are not many left today who supported the dam project, nor who had a negative reputation at the time. If there were any candidates left for the curse, it's the husband of the housewife who was beaten to death last year, Teppei Hojo, and Mr. Hojo's daughter, Satoko Hojo. Strangely, these two are the only candidates left. Will this year's curse come down on the two of them? There's more than enough value in observing them both. To Oishi-san. There was a call from you from Section 4's Chief Shigeharu. Apparently, the slaughtered corpse in the Ojikawa River is related to the S group as we thought. We're still verifying what happened behind the scenes, but apparently the deceased filled up dozens of self-created fictional bank accounts to their limits with money from the S group, reaching around 100 million yen. It appears there were 3 or 4 men with former S group connections involved in this. They've already disappeared along with millions of yen. The deceased was tortured on that point for information, and she was clearly slaughtered as an example to others. There are apparently some real wizards chasing down the people who disappeared. They're also spreading letters to related Yakuza groups not to harbor them. There's still no evidence that Teppei Hojo is one of those people. As far as Chief Shigeharu can tell, he hasn't been told anything. He was her pimp, but she didn't trust him at all, did she? Teppei Hojo has left the apartment in Okinomiya, and has returned to his former residence in Hinamizawa. Yeah, it's, definitely a struggle. I don't really know what to add. Yeah.
I wholeheartedly wanted to protect her. I wanted, more than anybody else, what was best for her. These emotions born from kindness eventually became murderous intent. My pure white intentions stained in red and black. And even as I understood that it meant the destruction of the day-to-day life I so wanted to protect. Tatarigoroshi. Where did I go wrong? Looking for the answer, the tragedy spreads ever wider. Is Hojo-san staying home today too? Furude-san, do you know anything? The teacher's voice wasn't critical, but Hirika-chan hung her head, unable to answer, and I felt really bad for her. The teacher called Hirika-chan up, and they had an exchange in hushed tones at the dais. At first, Hirika-chan said that Satoko's fever had grown worse, but everyone in the class knew it was a lie, because every day, Hirika-chan brought Satoko's bento with her. Satoko-chan, I wonder what happened.
Don't ask me. I'm the one who wants to know most of all. It was already the 3rd day since Satoko's first absence. Ever since then, I haven't felt good. Until just last Sunday, everything had been so much fun. I'd reached out to Satoko like a real older brother, and we spent that time quietly, but warm and comfortable. So why had it suddenly been flipped over? The more I thought about it, the more I thought that the world had taken a turn for the worse ever since Oishi arrived. Thinking on it now, maybe the strange apprehensions plaguing me the night before Oishi arrived had been a sign. Kuraudo Oishi, Oyashiro-sama's servant. Shit, that's impossible. They can't decide Satoko will be the cursed victim this year just because she showed up. Just what sort of slip-up had I committed to cause those fun times to end so suddenly? Yes, it was the day before Oishi appeared. Shion, Mion, and Lorena had spoken of the curse surrounding Satoshi and his disappearance, and it was so sinister it gave me a bad premonition. Such a small thing was the slip-up that invited Oyashiro-sama's servant. It was absurd. I kept on groaning to myself that I would never accept it, ever. I obviously wasn't the only one suppressing my feelings. Mion and Lorena were, too. Everyone in the class was doing it. Rika-chan knew something about Satoko's situation, but she wouldn't tell us. Rika-chan still held a calm attitude, like a cat basking in the sun, but she was being unbelievably stubborn about this whole thing. She didn't want to tell us, and that wouldn't change no matter how many times we asked her. Everyone understood that, so nobody questioned her. If Rika-chan won't talk, then we just have to wait. And she might not be talking because it's something not worth saying. There was no persuasive power in reassurance given with an anxious face like that. Mion was being taciturn, and just looked up at the sky with a somehow annoyed expression. I couldn't tell if she was unhappy that Rika-chan wouldn't talk about it with her own friends, or if she was concerned over Satoko's well-being. And what about me? My anxiety was suffocating me day after day. If someone else were looking at me, then maybe I'd look annoyed like Mion did. Tap, tap. Someone tapped my shoulder. It was Tomita-kun and Okamura-kun. Maebara-san, do you have a minute? Did your ball get stuck again? You guys have to get it yourselves this time. Don't rely on the older kids for everything. I didn't feel like going along with them, so I was a little unsympathetic with my response. We heard a little interesting rumor. A rumor? Yeah. I just thought it might have something to do with that. A rumor? About Satoko. They hadn't said that, but it didn't seem unrelated. They didn't want to talk in the classroom, so they pulled me behind the school building, lending further credence to that thought. The back of the school was damp and humid like always. Students didn't really come here because they wanted to. It might, however, have been the ideal location for trading rumors away from prying eyes. Tomita-kun, Okamura-kun, these rumors, they're about why Satoko is absent, right? We don't know if it has something to do with it, though. Or maybe... What on earth happened to Satoko? Is she sick? Or could she be, like, really sick or injured or something? No. Actually, it's the opposite. I heard my grandma saying that she came to buy tofu at our shop yesterday. Oh, Tomita's family runs a tofu shop, added Okamura-kun. She went shopping? To buy some tofu? My voice sounds so stupefied even I can tell. It was understandable. I was worried about what grave illness or injury she had, when the person herself had been out and about shopping for tofu. So, how was she? Did she look okay? Was she wearing a mask like she was getting better? Or was she using crutches? Or did she have bandages on her? No, there wasn't really any signs of sickness or injuries on her. But I should have felt relieved that it wasn't an illness or an injury. But my anxiety wasn't going away, because Tomita-kun and Okamura-kun's expressions weren't looking any better. She apparently came to buy one piece of soft tofu, but my grandma said it was strange. Strange? Why? What's wrong with buying soft tofu? Irritated by how roundabout they were being, I had to desperately fight that irritation from creeping into my voice. Well, Hojo and Furude live by themselves, and they don't have that much money, right? So they only ever buy the cheaper, firmer kind of tofu. They've never bought the soft stuff. It's the most expensive thing there. Soft or hard, they're both tofu, right? Maybe she just wanted to eat some great tofu or something. Well, maybe, but... I knew how transparent I sounded right then. This wasn't anything trivial, it was some kind of important clue. Not the cheap, firm tofu, but the expensive, soft kind. Shopping not in the evening after school, but in the middle of the day. I couldn't figure out what those things meant. As I thought hard about it, Okamura-kun took his turn to speak. Me next! This is just a rumor, but apparently he's back. He? Who? Who's back? Hojo's uncle. Satoko's uncle. Right, I think Coach told me about him. Their aunt and uncle had taken them in after Satoko and Satoshi lost their parents in the accident. Hojo's uncle. They say he skipped town last year, scared of Oyashiro-sama's curse. He's really scary and violent, like a gang member. Everything Coach told me came back in bits and pieces. Right. The mean aunt and uncle who had tormented them all the time. I think he said that after their aunt was beaten to death by the deviant, he ran away to his lover's house in Okinomiya in fear of the curse. Why would she be staying home from school and shopping for soft tofu in the middle of the day just because her uncle came back? My underclassmen climbed up and looked downwards. There must have been some big hint buried in there. Even if I didn't understand it, if I told Mion or Rena about it, maybe they know something. Oh, my bad, you two. You were nice enough to talk about it, and I started hammering you with questions. Oh, no, it's okay. Now we know that she hasn't been in bed this whole time, gravely ill. That's worth something, right? That might be true, but it still won't... It won't make the clouds over my mind fade away. Ah! Maibara-san! Over there! Okamuto-kun cried wildly, pointing over my shoulders behind me. Startled, I turned around, and way on the other side of the schoolyard, near the school gate, I saw a figure trudging forth. Ah! It's Hojo! I burst into a run faster than I could speak, so that as quickly as possible I could see with my own eyes that she was okay. Satoko! Satoko seemed taken aback by me shouting and running over to her. Oh! My, what is it, Kate-san? You surprised me with all the yelling and running. Stupid! Enough about me already! 3 days! What happened, Satoko? I was so worried! What a worry word. It was only 3 days. You're such a worry word, Kate-san. From listening to her, she seemed like the normal Satoko, but I could tell she was clearly acting strangely. Her smile was somehow forlorn, and her complexion was bad for some reason. Hojo! Are you alright? Were you sick or something? Tomita-kun and Okamuto-kun both expressed their concerns. Just, what happened anyway? 3 days! Do you know how worried I was? Oh, I do so apologize. I was just giving the house a good cleaning. We haven't used it for a rather long time, so everything was covered in dust. Huh? Satoko, what are you talking about? Why would you have to stay home from school to clean the house? Satoko didn't answer me. Instead, she passed by me and headed for the entrance. Gosh, it's nearly about lunchtime, is it not? I'm just starving. It was certainly lunch break. I couldn't force her to stop after she told me she wanted lunch since she was so hungry. Well, whatever. Rika-chan's been bringing you lunch for 3 days now. You look like you can eat it today. Let's just go to the classroom and put everyone's minds at ease. You're right. I suppose I may have caused everyone to worry. It sure is tough being popular. I put a hand on Satoko's shoulder and we ran to the classroom together. Up close, I was able to verify that Satoko looked somehow weak. All this anxiety was supposed to go away when I saw her again. That's what I had thought. But now I actually started to have quite different fears. What the heck happened, Satoko? Everyone in the class, of course, reacted in the same exact way I had. We worried about you. I'm glad to see you well. What were you doing for 3 days? Our classmates showered her in questions. I truly do apologize for causing a fuss. As she cackled, she chowed down upon the bento Rika-chan had made for her. Those in the teacher's lounge must have been informed of Satoko's arrival, because our teacher sprinted into the classroom, her breathing ragged. Hojo-san! Oh, Sensei! I'm sorry for worrying you these 3 days. As you can see, I'm fit as a fiddle. My, I was very worried about you. When you're done eating, come right to the teacher's lounge. I have a lot to talk to you about. I must be in for a good scolding for those 3 days I cut class. Satoko laughed sheepishly while she scratched her head, and the rest of the class burst out into laughter. The teacher was acting angry, but she breathed a sigh of relief at seeing Satoko healthy and smiling as she ate her lunch with the class surrounding her. Well, what a relief, right, Nadena? Huh? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm glad she's okay. I looked at Nadena and knew. She had a sense that something about Satoko was off, too. I looked to see Mion detached from the clamor as well, with a somewhat grim expression. But Hurika-chan, on the other hand, was smiling from ear to ear. She spread out the bento boxes one by one as Satoko finished them. Finally, Satoko was satisfied, and after enjoying a thorough conversation with her classmates, remembered that she'd been called to the teacher's lounge. It's such a pain, but I think she'll be angrier if I don't go. I'll go with you. Satoko rises from her seat, and the Rika-chan runs over to her. I do apologize, Kate-san. I'll be right back after getting scolded. Right. I mean, I could go with you too. We're all comrades in getting scolded in the teacher's lounge, ever since the curry incident, right? That won't be necessary. Keiichi should mind the place while we're away. Rika-chan's words were gentle, but the firm rejection was clear in her eyes. Two of them exited into the hallway, walking shoulder to shoulder. After seeing them off, the class breathed a collective sigh of relief, broke apart, and went back to their usual lunch break banter. We, however, couldn't go back to how we usually were. Not I, not Mion, and of course not Rena. They stared at the classroom exit Satoko and Rika-chan had left through, their expressions a little distant and grim. We're all friends, isn't that right? I blurted out something strange, so Mion and Rena turned around with dubious expressions. I won't keep anything from my friends, so I'll tell you what I just heard a little while ago. I told them the stories I heard from Tomita-kun and Okamura-kun earlier about the tofu shop, and how Satoko's uncle had apparently come back, all at once without letting them speak. And that's all I know. So if either of you knows anything, please say so. I've said everything I can. I ended my sentence firmly and looked into Mion and Dena's eyes in turn. Dena stared right back at me. Her eyes didn't falter. Without even opening her mouth, I could tell she wasn't hiding anything. Then our gazes turned to Mion. It's not like I was trying to keep it a secret or anything. Mion couldn't seem to endure our silent stares, and began to talk timidly as if she was guilty of something. It's just, now you've said something, Kei-chan, I guess I have to talk about it. Mi-chan, you know something? Well, I mean, I knew from the first day that Satoko's uncle had come home. That he just randomly showed up in Hinamizawa last Sunday. Why didn't you tell us that? I'm sorry. My angry shout caused Mion to flinch away, look down, and hang her head uncomfortably. Keiichi-kun, it's nothing to get angry about. You're scaring Mi-chan. Huh? Oh. Sorry I shouted at you. I lowered my head in apology. Mion accepted it, collected herself, and continued. According to her, her uncle's relationship with his lover, whom he had been with in Okinomiya, had collapsed. Without anywhere to go, he went back home to Hinamizawa. And on that Sunday, the day of the barbecue, her uncle ran into Satoko and brought her back to the house. Why? Did he bring her with him? Because he's a good-for-nothing slob. He can't even cook by himself, much less do any cleaning. But that's... He brought Satoko-chan back to have her cook and clean? I remember that she said she'd been cleaning the house when I met her back at the school gate. A moment later, the pieces fell into place, into the jigsaw puzzle of unease. And as for what the puzzle depicted, when I saw it from afar, I could see the answer clearly. Satoko was locked up at home and tormented into doing the housework. Those are the rumors. If you knew that, why didn't you speak up? I nearly yelled that at Mion, but hastily stopped myself. Mi-chan! Is that true? I haven't seen it myself, so I don't know if it's true or not. Mion looked down again, and staring at the floor, grew quiet. Just like last year? Like when they lived with their mean uncle and his wife? But this uncle is completely helpless when it comes to housework, right? If Satoko's that important, then there wouldn't be any reason to torment her, would there? Keiichi-kun, I don't know what grounds you have for saying that. But you shouldn't be so irresponsible. But I clearly and directly got mad at me. You don't know much about this, so don't talk as though you do. Yes, that's clearly what she meant. Fine, then do you know something, Rena? I don't know anything either. I didn't know her uncle had taken her to the house until hearing it just now. But the situation is different from a year ago. The situation is different? What does that mean? Satoshi-kun isn't here. Satoshi really cared about his little sister. He always stuck up for her. He was her shield, so that she would be affected just a little less by their mean aunt and uncle's fighting. The mean uncle and Satoko-chan are the only ones living there now. Can you imagine how stifling that must be, Keiichi-kun? He only even came back because the lady he was depending on vanished and he couldn't look after himself. Do you think a person who came back for such an unpleasant reason would be able to treat Satoko-chan kindly? She was right. It wasn't easy for me to imagine Satoko not being tormented. Sorry. Oh, no, I'm sorry too. I sounded like I was interrogating you, didn't I? An awkward atmosphere floated among us. Among us! Okay. The three of us remained silent and just stared at the floor. Finally, we heard the principal's bell ringing. The teacher came back with Satoko and Rika-chan at her side. Alright. We're starting afternoon class. Class president, please. Everybody stand up. I'm sorry. How rude of me. I couldn't read anything from Satoko's vaguely sheepish expression. Amongst us. But given the clouded look Rika-chan was wearing behind her, it was tough to laugh off the disquieting story I'd heard from Mion. Alright! First time in a while everyone's been here. Let's all have a roaring good time with the whole club! Yeah, perfect. Indeed, in times like these, the best thing to do is obviously get rowdy and scheme against one another in a club activity. Just what I was waiting for. Hey, Satoko-chan! Let's play! There was that game you liked, wasn't there? What was it again? It doesn't matter which. Tell me. Tell me! Mion laughed happily, took a bunch of games out of the club locker, and lined them up on the desks. I think that was the first time Mion's ever let someone else decide on a game for her. I could tell she was being especially considerate to Satoko, thinking that whatever her circumstances, if we could just enjoy our time together as a group, that might be some comfort, some diversion. Satoko seemed to understand her feelings too, and smiled vaguely, though pleased. But her head slowly moved from side to side. I'm very grateful, but your feelings are enough. There are many things I need to do, so... Even Rika-chan hung her head in remorse. Hey, whoa! Seriously? All the club members are here for once and we're not playing anything? Desertion in the face of the enemy. What was the punishment game for it? What part of the club constitution was that in? Stop it, Mi-chan. We can't force her to play with us. Hey, this old man isn't trying to force her or anything. I just thought it would be more fun for sure if we did something exciting. Really, I'm happy you feel that way. Don't worry, next we meet, you'll see. I'll get you all caught in a gigantic trap. Satoko, while insulting us, still said she couldn't participate in the club today and apologized. She quickly put her things into her bag and pattered out into the hallway, disappearing. It all happened in the blink of an eye. Satoko. Rika-chan stared lonesomely as her friend hurried home, unable to be part of club activities. Silence filled the classroom. Both the cheerful voices of our classmates in the schoolyard and the voices of the cicadas sounded like they were coming from some faraway world. This is boring. The silence was broken by Mion's bitterness as she began putting the games on the desk back into the locker. Everyone just stared absently at Satoko's seat, now empty. Rika-chan, maybe you could tell us about it now? Rena made as gentle a smile as she possibly could, and spoke softly to Rika-chan. Even without hearing it from her, we pretty much knew the situation at this point. Satoko's uncle had broken up with his lover and come back home to Hinamizawa, and he had taken Satoko back home and forced her to do all the household work. And that all had to be pretty rough on her. Thinking this was common knowledge to everyone, I skipped to the important part. How's the situation? Maybe Mion and Rena wanted to ask the same question. Nobody spoke. We all just stared, waiting for Rika-chan's reply. Rika-chan still didn't answer us. We were hoping for her to say no, but her silence was a bad enough sign. Last year, was it? It was like this when both her uncle and his wife were here, right? Yeah. At the time, they were mostly just being caught between their aunt and uncle fighting. One of the ways we helped out was with the club, by reducing her time at home as much as we could, but he's making her do the chores now, so she can't stay at school either. Shit. Satoko's not a slave? Who do you think you are, ignoring your own inability to live properly and basically putting Satoko under house arrest? When you think about it, isn't this really strange? We'd need a lot of circumstantial evidence, but it's a problem, right? Can't we notify the police or something? You're right. If we had evidence she was being abused, I think we could tell the police. And can't we talk to Okinomiya's welfare people about this? Rena and I kept saying police, police, as though it were nothing, but Mion's response sounded like she thought we were a little naive. It's easy for you to say that. Have you thought about the risks of actually getting proof? What do you mean, risks? I think it was 2 winters ago. We reported it to Okinomiya's welfare center.
We told them there was abuse happening and to do something right away. Huh? You did? What happened? A person came as soon as we called. She interviewed Satoko and Satoshi about what was going on. And then their uncle and his wife, too. I can understand asking Satoko and Satoshi, but wouldn't it be not so good to talk to the aunt and uncle? They said they based their judgment on what they heard from both sides. Great of them, wasn't it? So, what did they decide to do? Wait and see. What do you mean, wait and see? The uncle really studied up on this stuff. By law, you can't call it abuse unless assault or child neglect has been established. They poked and prodded Satoko and Satoshi a lot, but it never left any real marks on them. They were pretty much eating 3 meals a day and had beds. And there weren't any recordings or something like that to prove they'd said or done anything to cause them psychological trauma. None of the villagers had ever actually seen them being violent either. No matter how mean you are, you wouldn't act so violent in front of other people. Nobody would. She would probably end up in a foster home if they took away from her uncle, but I mean, that's still better than being with her uncle. Then what happened? I say still, I mean, it's obviously way better, assuming that it's a good family. I don't know why there's like this stereotype that foster parents tend to be abusive, because I just don't understand it, because like, my mom was a foster carer for a while, not anymore, but she was for a little bit, and, you know, we knew several other families through the agency, and like, they're really strict about like, what you can, you know, like how you have to look after the kids and stuff, so I don't really know where this, like, you know, you wouldn't be able to get away with it, like, they're constantly in contact with the kids and stuff, you know, the agency, to make sure that everything's going well, so you couldn't get away with being an abusive foster parent, really, I don't think, or at least it would be harder, you know, like, so I don't know why there's this stereotype that it's common, like, why would it be more common than normal parents, right? Because as a foster parent, you also have to go out of your way to, like, apply and go through the entire, like, training process and everything, so, anyway. The welfare officer apparently went to visit on the same day each week for a while. The aunt and uncle knew they were both being watched and didn't torment them in any way that would stand out. Of course, that wasn't the end of it. You mean they ramped up how malicious they were being? Mion sighed and nodded. You never really heard it? Yeah, I've never heard of it in real life, but it's a very common, like, trope in stories for some reason. I don't know why. Mion sighed and nodded. Their aunt was really damn stubborn. She's one of the most spiteful people I've ever known. Apparently she was doing some pretty disgusting things. Satoko was like a doll that did nothing but breathe by the end of it. So what? From that conclusion, does that mean they never should have contacted child welfare in the first place? I understand. Without proof of abuse so clear anyone could see it, there's nothing we can do. In fact, it might even make the situation worse. We messed up pretty bad. After hearing that even public organizations, the one thing they thought was dependable, couldn't do anything, everyone hung their heads. In other words, until we have clear evidence of abuse, we shouldn't notify anyone? Well, I mean, basically, yeah. I considered Satoko's current situation. She was brought back to her house. It was a little difficult to call that abuse. She was being tormented and forced to do the chores. How she was being tormented would be the key, but without concrete evidence it would be difficult to prove. If she had some kind of external injury, that would work, but as far as we could tell from today, she had nothing like that. And being forced to do the chores, that was a bit weak too. There had to be better evidence that she was without a doubt being abused. I know. Her uncle had ignored Satoko's existence for a whole year and went to live with his lover in town. Didn't that fall under one of the definitions of abuse that Mion had mentioned? Child neglect?
Yeah, it's the perfect case of child neglect. What about that, Mi-chan? If her uncle weren't here now, it could be recognized as child neglect. But he's living with her at the moment, isn't he? They were apart before, but if he said something like he had a change of heart and decided to live with her, then they might just wait and see again. Once we reported it, we would need to be absolutely sure they'd interpret it as abuse. Maybe we needed far more concrete evidence, lest we repeat last year's mistake. Well, it's sad. This means we have to just sit quietly and wait, don't we? The only plan I could think of was, in the end, just watching and waiting. It left me in shock when I realized it would be the same policy as that of the officials who'd made the situation worse. As Mion said, reporting it to a public agency would be a gamble. If we're going to pick a fight, it would have to be one we couldn't afford to lose. If we were gambling without enough money, without enough evidence, our defeat would be assured. If we took the time to amass enough money that we could be sure of victory, then that would mean pretending we didn't see Satoko's plight for a considerable amount of time. Sorry for bringing this up now, but how is Rika-chan able to live by herself? Rika-chan had lost her parents, if I recall correctly. From what I'd heard, she had no relatives either. She was forced to live on her own as a result, but her life was unfettered, free of restriction. If she could somehow grant that freedom to Satoko, too. I mean, Rika-chan, you're living without any parents, right? Don't kids with no guardians have to go to some sort of institution? Keiichi-kun, that's cruel. I'm not saying it to be mean. I only asked because I thought maybe there'd be a hint at saving Satoko. Rika-chan, sorry if I offended you. Rika-chan shook her head, not particularly disturbed. Well, you see, it's because I'm considered the mayor's daughter. Let me explain. The mayor, Old Man Kimiyoshi, is Rika-chan's guardian. He got official permission from the governor of the prefecture. Huh? So you're adopted? No, not adopted. You can be someone's guardian without being in the same family. Oh, I get it. Rika-chan lives by herself, but by law she's considered to live with the mayor, right? Yeah, basically. That's why Rika-chan is allowed to live separately from her guardian. However, Satoko is actually living there as a freeloader. I don't understand the hard things, but anyway, she's right. Interesting you should say that, Mion. You can be someone's guardian even if they're in another family? Then shouldn't we have the mayor or someone else become Satoko's guardian, if only on paper? Then she'd be in the same position as Rika-chan, and she could go back to her old life. Too bad it won't work. I mean, her uncle is supposedly her guardian. Wait a minute. You lost me there. What's a guardian exactly anyway? In legal terms, a guardian and a parent weren't necessarily synonyms. So whoever was actually looking after her at home would be considered her guardian. Then her uncle isn't her guardian. He left Satoko by herself for so long. But if he insists he's her guardian, then that's it. It's been a few days since Satoko was taken back to her house. Her uncle's been paying for her meals since then, right? He's sort of looking after her, so he'd probably insist. And even though he abandoned her for a year, he's already looked after her for the whole year before that. But the mayor doesn't have that kind of history. So then if both the mean uncle and the mayor requested guardianship at the same time, the uncle would make more sense? No, but he'd have a better chance. The term guardian refers to the person actually caring for her, right? The uncle actually has a bed and a food for her, but the mayor would just have his name. It wouldn't even be a contest. Then, shouldn't the mayor just start caring for her for real? He'd be her guardian in name and reality if he did. We just need to shelter Satoko. That might lead to her uncle being desperate to take her back, but we'll stubbornly refuse him. It won't be that easy. Satoko's a growing girl, you know. It's not like giving someone a cat. You're asking him to care for a real person. Then Coach! What about Coach? Coach, I don't know, he's got a lot of money, right? He even said it himself. Even if he's not a real father, Coach could become her guardian. He'd be great at taking care of her. Stop that. Stop thinking of Satoko like a pet. All you're doing is talking about pushing her onto someone else. You need to think more seriously about how much responsibility it is to care for another human being. Did you ask him? Did you get an actual promise from him that he'd take Satoko under his care? No, I didn't. If you remember correctly, to become someone's guardian, if that person already has a guardian, you need permission from the current guardian, and the uncle definitely won't allow it. I don't know what the laws are like, and also this is 1980s Japan, so who fucking knows. But Coach would definitely say yes. Well, fine. Even considering the 0% probability of Coach saying it was okay, then what? It still wouldn't work. He couldn't become a guardian all by himself. Ah! That's right. Coach, didn't he say it himself? He was alone, so he couldn't do it. Shit, what the hell? Why is being a single such a disadvantage in this society? Then all you could do is marry into a wealthy family, couldn't you? Is there anyone that wealthy in Hinamizawa? I'm not sure. See? It's not simple. It's hard to adopt someone. And you can't go into it thinking you'll push Satoko onto someone else just for a little while. You're being naive, Kei-chan. Shit, damn it! What the hell? I'm desperately thinking of how to save Satoko, and all you're saying is no, no! Don't you care about Satoko at all? Are you even worried about our friend one bit? What do you have to say for yourself? I didn't mean that. But it just won't be that easy, and it's not that difficult a problem. We just need to have some rich people look after Satoko for a while, that's all. Right, what about your family, Mion? You always brag about how great it is being one of the 3 families or whatever, don't you? And from what you've said, you must live in a gigantic house. My house? No, that won't happen. My grandma would never allow it. Then what about your relatives in Okinomiya? From what I heard, they're living in luxury themselves. There's plenty of shops your relatives manage in town, too. Your family are basically millionaires, aren't they? No, that won't work! Going to Okinomiya is even more out of the question. My father, he'd never let it happen either. Hey! Normally you act somewhat like some high and mighty bigwig, and now you're being all spineless? What the hell? Are you just gonna sit by and watch Satoko suffer? No, I don't, but... I mean, I want to help her as much as you. But that's a different story. How is it a different story? How can you be so cold-hearted? Your friend is in trouble. What are you if you don't rescue her? You're our president. Our club president. Save her. Save her from this crisis. If you don't save her right now, you're not a friend. You're not even human. I don't know if you have any humanity left in you. Oh my god, it's killing my voice. Are you listening to me, Mion? My emotions all exploded out of me, and I didn't even give her a chance to say anything in response. I just wanted to make Mion agree with me, even if I had to force her. If she did, Satoko's problems would be solved. If pushing her would solve the issue, then I'd push her as much as I needed to. Why aren't you saying anything anymore? I'm asking you, asshole! Well, say something, Mion Sonosaki! Me? Mion, looking down with a grim face, began sobbing. Her hands were clenched into trembling fists, and she rubbed her eyes to wipe away the tears. Was what I said actually that mean? This isn't the time to cry. We're in the gambling room now, and we have to do something to save Satoko. And as I thought that, Rena spoke, her voice cold and incredibly calm. Keiichi-kun, if Mii-chan's family won't work, then what if we look for another wealthy family? I know someone in Hinamizawa who lives in a nice big house. Who's that? Oh, come on! You've got a splendid family, and you're leaving it out of things? My family? My family is... You're friends, right? Save her, Keiichi-kun! Mii-chan is cold-hearted, after all. Since you're so considerate towards friends, you should lead by example. Just the three of you are living in that huge house, right? Then you've probably got plenty of spare rooms. You should just give a few of the empty ones to Satoko-chan. And then our worries will be all over. What's this? We're done already? That was pretty quick. Okay, great. Congratulations on solving the problem. Then are we done for today? I'm going home. Hooray! Hooray! Maybe I'll go treasure hunting. I haven't done that in a while. I was so worried about Satoko-chan until now that I didn't feel like going to play at all. I wonder what I'll find today. How? Say something, will you? Why am I the only one talking? Say something, you bastard! Are you listening, Keiichi Maebara? Even the cicadas seemed to cower in fear. Rena, her shoulders bobbing up and down, and me, who had forgotten to breathe. Mion, whose face had gone completely pale, and Rika-chan, who was keeping silent as if nothing had happened. The atmosphere in the classroom grew tight and stiff, and it petrified us where we stood. Rattle. The sound of the chair as Rena sat back down after having stood up finally allowed everyone present to take a breath. Rena had shown me just how much I'd hurt Mion. Rena's scary. After a few moments, Rika-chan cut into the frozen air. Yeah. I'm sorry, Rika-chan. Mii-chan, I'm sorry to you too. I don't have to apologize to you, do I, Keiichi-kun? Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for being so unreasonable. Were you saying all that to me before? You said it while glaring at Mii-chan, so I totally thought you were talking to her. But it had such strength that you wouldn't have imagined it normally. All I did was spout terrible things as a wave of violent fury passed over me. I couldn't contend with her. Mion, I'm sorry. I lost my cool. Come to think of it, I didn't understand what had gotten me that riled up. I thought of myself as Satoko's nini, so I only had good intentions, that I'd think about it a little harder than everyone else, and yet... It's okay. You were worrying with everything you had, but all I was saying was that nothing would work. So I'm sorry. I did something wrong, too. Mion rubbed away at the tears at the corner of her eyes with her fists and apologized as well. We bowed our heads to each other and looked down without glancing at the other. Someone, I don't know who, heaved a sigh. Satoko being tormented had been known about since last year. How had the tragedy back then saved Satoko? How had they brought it to an end? Right. In the end, nobody could do anything. All they could do was bear it patiently and wait for those agonizing days to end. That's right. The one who brought an end to those terrible days was some crazy drug addict nobody knew. On the night of Watanagashi last year, their mean aunt had been beaten to death, but it hadn't been done to save Satoko or Satoshi. Right. It really was just a coincidence. Satoko's friends, who needed to do something for her most of all, could do nothing. The incident may have been a tragic one, but from Satoko's viewpoint, it was nothing less than a miracle. Yes, a miracle. A miracle one could only wait for. Is waiting all we can do? Not for evidence of abuse. Not for something that minor. Huh? Oh, wait. For what? A miracle. No one made fun of me for using such a crazy word. We couldn't come up with any solutions, so it was the only thing we could do. We're powerless. That one word Mion dropped was the finishing blow. It was hot. My body was sticky with sweat. The worst month, June. I walked forward quite a ways, and then turned right where the rice fields ended. I'd never come here before, so I had no idea where to go. I got lost several times, so I may have taken quite a long way around. Maybe I should have gone back home and gotten my bike first. It would have made everyone else worry if I'd asked them, so I asked one of our other classmates where Satoko's actual house was. That house was originally her family's, apparently, not their uncle and his wife's. Their house had been bigger, so they had taken it for themselves. Right here. Several houses all in a line. Over there? I was visiting Satoko's house, but didn't particularly intend to meet her there. I didn't mean to spy on the enemy, her mean uncle either. Maybe I just wanted to be a little closer to her, as her Nini. Pretty words, but I didn't know if they were true. If what Tomito-kun and the others told me was right, it'd be this house. When I recognized it, my feet grew heavy. What did I come here for? My motive for coming here was absurd. When Mion had said at the end that we were powerless, it made me sort of frustrated. I just wanted to do something, anything other than waste the days away praying for a miracle. That's what made me come here. But that was all. Even if I were to witness her uncle actually tormenting Satoko, what could I do? Would I act like a comic book hero, punch the guy in the face, and take Satoko away with me? And then live together somewhere far away? That was ridiculous. I'm powerless. The cicadas' voices, raised in chorus, sounded like they were scoffing at me, as though they were saying that if I couldn't do anything and wouldn't do anything, then I should go back home. I heard a car approaching, so I got out of its way, but the car stopped right behind me, its horn honking shortly once. Annoyed, hadn't I gotten out of the way? I looked behind me, and a familiar face was looking at me out the driver's seat window. Coach! Hello, Maibara-san. How unexpected to meet you all the way out here. Do you live nearby? Me being here wasn't normal. Just as I considered somehow giving him the slip, I noticed Satoko sitting in the passenger seat. Satoko! Satoko got out the car and began unloading a lot of groceries from the trunk. I happened to run into a coach on my way back from shopping. He said he'd bring me home, so I accepted his offer. She wouldn't have been able to carry all those groceries on her bike. As Coach spoke, he pulled Satoko's bike from out the back seat where they put it. The grocery bags were big, and there were 4 of them. They all seemed to be packed full and very heavy. Those bags. Seven's Mart? Hey, isn't that a little far to go by bicycle? I looked at the bags and saw that they were filled to the brim with sake bottles, snacks that you'd eat with sake, and boxes of cigarettes. Their weight was one thing, but their contents were nothing less than luxury items. I made it thanks to Coach. He helped me out. It was a little difficult going up those hills. Satoko gave Coach a smile filled with gratitude, but it was incredibly awkward and even heartrending. Satoko, these groceries aren't for dinner tonight, are they? Of course not! I do not drink sake, and I hate snacks. Of course I don't smoke either. He made Satoko go to a distant store by herself on her bike. So she could buy dumb shit like this? What was the uncle doing right now anyway? He must have been working up a good sweat this very moment if he needed to send Satoko out by herself, right? If not, then how much had Satoko suffered for no reason? I hadn't intended to voice my feelings, but they may have made it into my face. Coach might have noticed because he clapped me on the shoulder. Just then, one of the house windows clattered open, and the face of a vulgar man, the very sight of which made me immediately avert my eyes, emerged from within it. There were no self-introductions necessary. My gut told me that this was the uncle in question. The first thing out of his mouth should have been words of gratitude for Satoko. Satoko! You left the heater of the sake on when you left, you half-wit! I'm sorry. But you told me to go right away. Shut up! You've gone and ruined it, and it was the good stuff, too! What do you do about it? I'm sorry! Satoko miserably apologized over and over, bowing again and again. She could be perfectly described as a small animal. I had no idea what was happening. Satoko finished shopping for all this heavy stuff that wasn't even for dinner. She only managed to come back because she ran into Coach and he drove her home. If she hadn't been found by him, she'd surely still be by herself, panting and moaning, pedaling her bicycle up that steep hill. What was with those words, those horrible, sleazy words that he said to Satoko? In what country's dictionary did it tell him to say such things to a young girl who'd just finished shopping? My anger, of course, wouldn't reach him. The uncle displayed no interest in me, instead shouting at Coach. Oh, if it isn't Dr. Irie! Hello? Why don't you come on inside too? We're in the last round, so you can get in right away. 100 yen per 1,000 points, and anything goes. No, I'll pass, thank you. I just ran into Satoko-chan and gave her a lift, is all. I'll be leaving now. Ah, nah, come play around! You got a lot of money, yeah? I didn't even understand what her uncle and Coach were talking about, but I knew one thing for sure. None of what he just said had been to thank Satoko in any way. Satoko, could you bring us the damn snacks? And start getting those beers chilled, too. Go get us some cold ones from the fridge. Te-chan, you're so harsh on her. She looks so sad. You should take better care of her. This is how I gotta treat her. She's been like this since she was with my bro. Spoil her and she ain't gonna listen to a damn thing you say. Shit. Whatever, it's your draw, Te-chan. Tsubuki-san declared reach, too. Sorry. What? You and Reach again, Tsubaki? Looked like it wasn't just her uncle. Some of his friends were over. Hey, wait. What was he... No, what were they doing? Flinging rude words left and right, making Satoko go shopping for your beer. What were they doing? My uncle's friends came from town, and they're playing mahjong. He told me to prepare dinner for them as well. What the hell? Mahjong? He called his friends over for mahjong? They were too busy playing, so they sent Satoko to buy them a crapload of booze from a faraway store, and the first thing he said to her was how she left the gas on. What the hell? What does that guy think he's doing? Who could get lost in some dumb game of mahjong and send Satoko to buy all this stuff? Even though Coach was listening, he pretended he wasn't. There was a line of heavy-looking shopping bags lined up on the ground next to the trunk. Maibara-san, you help too, please. You're a boy. You get to carry this heavy one. Coach! You're gonna let this slide? This is completely... Coach pretended he hadn't heard that violent outburst either. When I thought about it later, his reaction might have been the best thing he could do in that situation. I'll carry 2 of them myself. Come on. Help us carry them, please. The bags were packed to the brim with bottles of sake and bar snacks. It was so heavy, and so filthy, so unfair. They weren't just heavy in terms of weight. They made me feel mortified. Nothing could have been heavier than that. Kate-san, there's no need to push yourself. I'll carry it. Satoko mistook my biting back the humiliation as grimacing under the weight and offered to help. Stupid. Don't underestimate me. Satoko had never looked down on my physical strength in the slightest.
Coach, I'm sorry for you too. It must be heavy.
No, not at all, answered Coach, smiling vaguely, coolly. But I, and I alone, knew. Coach was an adult, so he just knew how to keep his feelings from showing. There was even more anger than I was feeling, burning deep in his eyes. Well, it is heavy. Shit. Shit! It wasn't very far to the doorsteps of Satoko's house, but the bag squeezed my palms and started leaving red marks. Fury welled up in me, and the back of my throat stung. But even if it all came gushing out, it wouldn't solve anything. So, just tightly gritting my teeth was as much as I could do.
Really, thank you so much. Both of you. You really helped me here.
You're playing catch up, so you don't know if you'll get there before the end of the stream, but my Barasan in case you self-full fuck from it, lol. After we carried them to the back door, Satoko said that was enough. Occasionally we'd hear the repulsive laughing of her uncle and her friends from within, and my insides would seethe. I knew they weren't ridiculing us, and that was why it made me so mad. They made Satoko shop for all this heavy, selfish stuff, then ignored her and laughed amongst themselves as they pleased. It was deeply aggravating. Of course, Coach had to have felt the same way. But if he accidentally let his feelings slip onto his face, he'd only cause Satoko more worry. He knew all that, and spoke coolly, as if to say he didn't care. Not at all. I'm happy I could be a bit of a help for you. If there's anything else I can help with, please tell me.
Yes. I really am happy you feel that way.
That he feels that way. Those words were sad. Satoko herself was sad, and resigned that we could only help her so much. But she was right. No matter how much Coach or I want to help Satoko, this was as much as we could do. I felt absolutely ashamed at not having the power to help her any more than this. Burning, boiling emotions were bubbling up within me and rising into my throat. Trembling all over, I almost started to cry from my fury. Me too. If there's anything I can do, I'll help you whenever you need. So, hang in there. I wanted to at least give her those trite words saying that I'd help her whenever she wanted.
Yes. Thank you very much. I'm happy just that you came all the way here when you didn't need to.
Satoko seemed to have guessed what I was doing in a place like this, when my house was in the opposite direction from school.
All right. You should get going. They're drunk right now, so there's no telling what they'll get mad at you for.
She felt guilty getting us involved after we'd helped her, because she wanted to be the only one to suffer this misfortune. That's how it looked, and it hurt. I handed my supermarket bag over to Satoko, and then I noticed on the back of Satoko's hand there was something that looked like a bruise. Hey, Satoko! What the heck is that bruise? I knew as much as anyone else how transparent that sounded. I didn't need to hear it from Satoko to know how this bruise came to be.
I just slipped on the stairs and hit it a little. Please, pay it no mind.
You're lying! Coach nudged me in the back. And then he put his index finger to his mouth to chide me for being so loud.
Really, thank you so much. Until tomorrow. I hope we can see each other at school.
That's not what I'm talking about! I asked you how you got that bruise on your hand! The evening glow finally got to a point where I could see the other concealed oval-shaped bruises and traces of swelling on her neck and her legs and other places too. She's wearing tights.
I fell down the stairs.
The very moment my violent, rampaging emotions were about to burst out their way out of my throat, I found my mouth being tightly clamped down on. Coach was pressing down on my mouth from behind, wrapping around me tightly with his hands. Because of that, I couldn't say anything. I could only groan, which I did. That was all I could do. I needed to expel all the magma sitting deep within me, because otherwise I'd surely explode into a million pieces that very moment. So I groaned. I groaned. From my mouth, from my whole body, while heat fell in drops from my eyes. I groaned and groaned. I groaned to the point of exhaustion. I wrung absolutely everything out of myself. Even having lost my voice, I was still wringing it all out. I understand how you feel. I really do, Maebara-san. Please, please just endure it for now. Please, I'm asking you, Maebara-san. Endure it for now? And then what, huh? What would happen to her, to Satoko? Her body and mind were wounded, and she was being made to suffer like this. Can you not even let me howl in vain at it? Is that it, Coach? Are we this powerless? So powerless that we can't even fucking scream from the bottom of our hearts? The voices of the Higurashi made me calm down. I didn't know how long it had been. Satoko abruptly gave a slight bow. Thank you very much, Keiichi-san. Satoko. You looked a lot like my real Nini just now. My real Nini may not be here anymore, but I have another Nini named Keiichi-san. Yeah, you got it. I'm your Nini. And when you're in pain, I'll help you no matter what. Your Nini will rescue you for sure. Satoshi Hojo, you fucking idiot. If not now, then when? Satoko, she's never been in more pain in her life. If her Nini doesn't save her now, then when will he? Why did you run away? Why did you abandon her? Why did you leave Satoko behind? You don't have any right to call yourself Satoko's Nini! I won't run away. Huh? I definitely won't run away. I won't run away and abandon you like Satoshi did. No way! I will not abandon you! Slip. Tears trickled down from Satoko's eyes. And then she narrowed her eyes into a smile. Goodbye, Nini. Satoko took her right hand and awkwardly waved to me. I'll be alright. My Nini now helped me so much. So I'll be okay. I'll do my best. Until tomorrow. I'll be okay. So, for today, this is goodbye. There was no way that I could say bye, see you tomorrow. And then from inside the house came a throaty, disgusting voice. Satoko! Could you bring us the snacks already? Okay, Nini. Get going already. I'll be fine now. Hurry. Let's go, Maebara-san. Staying any longer than this would be a bother to Satoko-chan. Coach, Nini's house is a little far away. I'm sorry to ask you this, but could you take him home? Yes, I'll do that. Coach grabbed me by my collar, and with strength I couldn't have imagined him having, started dragging me away, and I, unable to oppose him, started getting farther away from Satoko. She waved her hand to us, expression still dark, and disappeared through the back door. Coach got into the car first, then turned around on the narrow path and brought the passenger side door around for me. I know how you feel so well, it hurts. No, I think I understand it even more than you. But right now, just for now, please endure it. She understood exactly how you feel. So, please endure it. If you don't, I know already. I'm sorry. Thank you for before. I meekly got into the passenger seat. The car accelerated quietly, and Satoko's house grew farther and farther away in the rearview mirror. It made a wide turn, and then I couldn't see her house anymore. Is your house that far away? It's in the other direction from the school, isn't it? I didn't bother to reply. I would have been hard-pressed to give him an answer as to why I was at Satoko's house. Coach didn't say anything more either. For a while, the two of us were silent, the only sounds from the gravel spraying over the road as we drove. I remembered how Rena said things were different than last year. At the time, she had Satoshi with her. Satoshi protected Satoko, so that less of the sparks fell onto her. But now, Satoshi isn't here. Yes, that's the unfortunate truth. Coach seemed to understand what I really meant when I said that. It's a terribly sad, cruel story, but there's a limit to our resolve, our efforts, and our assistance. It sounded like an excuse, but he was right. Even if Coach and I wanted to be people Satoko could depend on, that was all. It ended at the front door. No matter how much I shouted that I would be her Nini, no matter how much I shouted that I wouldn't abandon her, and no matter how much Satoko called me Nini, I couldn't do any more than that. Where on earth could Satoshi have gone? Right, Satoshi was another story. Her actual brother, Satoshi. He was in a position to protect her far, far better than we ever could. That was the cold, sad truth of the massive gulf between Satoshi and us. I wonder what he's been doing lately. Satoshi left home. I didn't know why. Maybe it was because of Oyashiro-sama's curse, or he disappeared or something. In any case, he wasn't beside Satoko now. At the time Satoko needed him to protect her most, he wasn't here. Why isn't he here? Satoko needs him now more than ever! A lot of people talk about Oyashiro-sama's curse, but the only thing I can say is that he ran away. One of my friends said that one day he just never came back. He ran away without even leaving so much as a note for his sister. Satoshi-kun had been doing part-time jobs a lot. At the time, Satoko-chan really wanted this huge stuffed animal. It ended up costing a lot, so he was doing all sorts of part-time jobs in order to afford it. He felt so strongly about it. Everyone was whispering about how he at least wanted to get his sister a nice birthday present, since she was being made to live such a pitiful life with her uncle and his wife. In the end, he didn't use his savings for a birthday present for Satoko. Satoshi-kun disappeared, and the police looked long and hard. They found out that Satoshi-kun had withdrawn all his savings himself on the day he left. After checking all over, they began to think that maybe he'd used his savings to go to Tokyo. Tokyo? For what? Again, all I can say was that he ran away. He saved up all that money so he could run away? He was that selfish? But how could he just leave Satoko behind? If he was going to run away anyway, he should have brought Satoko with him! Even now, Coach was still calm. He wasn't trying to pour any oil on the fire of my anger at all. He just waited until my anger naturally subsided. After listening to gravel being crushed under the wheels for a little while, Coach spoke abruptly. Please understand. Satoko-chan left behind arrived at the same conclusion. I'm a burden on my brother, and that's why he abandoned me. He didn't take her with him when he left. How terrible must Satoko have felt, being betrayed by the brother she loved so much. But Satoko-chan was a very strong person. Of course, she had the support of close friends too, but that was how she regained her smile. I recalled how Satoko had spoken of Satoshi so brightly when I was eating dinner with her and Rika-chan a few days ago. At the time, I didn't think any more of it than how pleasant their sibling love had been. But now that I did think about it, I realized was like she was peering into the distance from atop a pile of tragic perseverance. She said Satoshi-kun will come back for sure, and that when he did, she wanted him to see how she was no longer a burden. Satoko isn't a burden! She's way better at day-to-day living than me, and she can do pretty much anything! I mean, she might fall behind Rena or Rika-chan in certain aspects, but she's way more of an adult than most people. That's the result of her having worked so hard, since she didn't know when Satoshi would come home. Her efforts are so painful. While she lived with Rika-chan, while Rika-chan taught her how to handle everything flawlessly, all so that she could welcome back Satoshi at any time, so that she could show him she wasn't ashamed. So when is Satoshi going to come back? I asked Coach, but knew he wouldn't be able to answer. In any case, Satoshi ran away. He left Satoko and ran away from Hinamizawa. Someone said that when you leave Hinamizawa and run away, Oyashiro-sama's curse gets you, right? Then that made sense. Satoshi running away and his disappearance. That would obviously mean people thought it was the curse, right? And they could smile, as though it were his own fault, as though he got what he deserved. Hey, Oyashiro-sama, whoever you are. Satoshi didn't vanish because he ran away. You demoned him away with your curse, didn't you? If that's not what happened, then I won't forgive you. When did Satoshi run away? The night of the Watanagashi festival last year. When their aunt was killed by that deviant. It was a few days after that. On Satoko-chan's birthday. On Satoko's birthday? I slammed my hands on the dashboard in front of me with all my might. Satoshi! Of all the days, he could have chosen to run away. Their aunt just died a few days before, didn't she? All your days of suffering were about to end, weren't they? You were just about to start thinking about a new life, weren't you? It's wrong to be happy about someone dying. But for Satoko and her brother, her birthday had come at a critical turning point. Their mean uncle had fled town, and the siblings would be left alone. They should have been able to be happy about that. On Satoko's birthday. Satoko was probably waiting for her brother to return the whole time. Waiting for her brother to return when he never did. Waiting, with bated breath, for her brother to return. Her hopes and dreams of a new life to come growing ever larger. But no matter how long she waited, he didn't come back. He didn't even contact her. Satoko trembling in anticipation of a great present. Just when? When would she have to face the cold, terrible truth? Satoshi, you fucking idiot. I could feel my blood rising to my head in my anger at Satoshi. I was frustrated. I was aggravated. I couldn't forgive him. Satoko still respected and adored her brother, and yet he so heartlessly betrayed her. Such a person wouldn't just come back. Now, when he was most needed. Yes, no one would protect her. Not even her real brother Satoshi. So when she started to see you as her Nini, I was happy. Huh? I pray for Satoko-chan's happiness as well, but I have a position in society and a job to do every day. I have little time that I can devote to Satoko-chan. But you're different. You go to school with her and you're closer to her than Satoshi-kun in age. I know you think you can only do so much, but you're in a position where you can give Satoko-chan a hand much better than I can. So, I want you to help her enough for the both of us. That's what I wish for. But that's... Coach, you could... Of course, with my job skills, there are plenty of things only I can help her with. But in the same way, there are things only you can do for her. What I want to say is, we should both perform in every way we can. Is that a little too complicated? Coach added that, but I shook my head in response. When I heard him say he had job skills, it reminded me that he was an adult in a different position from all of us. Maybe I should ask him about it. Oh, Coach, do you know a lot about laws? No, I know even less than the average person. Why? I thought back to when I argued with Mion and the others about Satoko. Our children's argument had only left us with the conclusion that we had to wait and see, but what would an adult think? What was it? The child welfare law. As an emergency measure to secure the safety of a juvenile, they can force him or her to separate from the parents. They can do that? So then we could rescue Satoko from her uncle right away. Satoko-chan might not want that. Satoko doesn't want it? Why? Coach didn't answer me. I didn't know why he didn't. It was clear as day that Satoko's uncle was being violent and treating her like a slave. So then why? I clamped down on my frenzied emotions and waited intently for Coach to answer, but he never did. It wasn't like he was pretending he hadn't heard me. If I had to say, it was more like he wanted to explain but couldn't put it into the right words. Satoko-chan probably thinks of this poor treatment as a trial. A trial? This isn't some weird religion we're talking about! You might know this, but Satoshi-kun always looked out for Satoko-chan. She always relied on him, almost as though she was utterly dependent on him. I'd known for a while that Satoshi had always protected Satoko from their aunt and uncle, but that was his duty as an older brother, not something to worry about. I think that may have traumatized her. Maybe she figured that depending so heavily on her brother had made him hate her. And for Satoko, the current situation was a retelling of the story of a little over a year ago. But this time, Satoshi wasn't here. She wants to overcome this trial by herself without relying on anyone else. And that if she doesn't grow strong, then Satoshi-kun will never return. She thinks something like that now. Or so I believe. Now that he mentioned it, Satoko had never said a word about how hard it had been before. I figured she was being threatened not to talk about it, but I talked with everyone and we were wondering if we should report it to the Child Consultation Center. I have heard that a social worker was visiting Satoko-chan last year. Yes, in the end they decided to wait and see, and we thought that maybe that made her get tormented even more. Apparently Satoko-chan reported it herself, and as a result the abuse worsened but was kept just out of sight. She was under even more torment, and the burden on Satoshi-kun for protecting her rose considerably. Huh? Could Satoko... She wouldn't be thinking it's her own fault for reporting it, would she? Coach nodded quietly. Satoko-chan would probably either hate it if you suggested reporting the abuse, or feign courage and say you didn't need to. And even if you reported it in secret, she'd probably insist to the social worker that she wasn't being abused. Satoko always acts tough and doesn't readily admit defeat, so I can imagine that easily. And the Child Consultation Center has enormous authority in these matters. They can take emergency measures without needing any permission from a court or the concerned child. If the abuse was known to the public, they could forcibly shelter her even if she denied it. For Satoko-chan, that would probably mean losing. This isn't about winning or losing! It's real life! Satoko, she's... Back on topic. After they placed her under their protection, she would be sent to a childcare institution or the like. She would basically be living there, so it would mean moving away. And with the change in residence would come a change in schools, too. Changing schools. It has to be done. If that's what it will take for her to be safe. Satoko-chan understands all those things. All the more reason for her not to want it. Why? Because Satoko-chan's reason for living is to wait at that house for Satoshi-kun to return. The young girl abandoned by her brother. How did she find her reason to live? Try looking at it from Satoko-chan's point of view rather than your own. I felt like he was trying to confuse me with that hard-to-understand, roundabout way of talking so unique to adults. The point was that I couldn't do anything about Satoko wanting to stay in that house, and that I should watch until she gives in. In the end, no matter what I said, Coach himself was saying to wait and see. I don't understand. What? If I feel that Satoko is really in danger, I will take action without asking anyone's opinion. She might not be happy with the result, and she might hate me for it. But I believe that will ultimately be what brings Satoko happiness. Coach turned to me and gazed fixedly into my eyes. It was written all over his face. He was shocked at what such a young kid had said. Why would you go that far? Coach, no, rather, normal adults might not have understood. So I taught him the creed and the values that I believed in. Satoko is my friend, and I am Satoko's Nini. Isn't that enough of a reason? I stared at him with a will strong and unbreakable as steel, as his eyes betrayed a tiny bit of unrest. No, of course that's enough. We were silent for a little while, until finally Coach said only that. Didn't we make a promise? I'm sorry, what? That we weren't going to ever let Satoko cry. We made a vow on that day of the barbecue party. I didn't think about it hard at all, but Coach and I still made a promise that we wouldn't ever let Satoko cry. Coach gave a dry grin of regret, immediately apologizing for not remembering. One way or another, when he grinned like that, it made me think that his enthusiasm for saving Satoko was a tiny bit smaller than mine. He lightly hit the brakes, making a skidding noise, and my whole body suddenly fell forward. Could that be your house there? Oh, right. Maibara-san would live at the Maibara residence, wouldn't he? Before I knew it, we were almost to my house. Case file 31. Achievement unlocked. Plain to see. Alright, let's view this new tip. December 1st, 1981. Prefecture Juvenile Welfare Division report. Do not view, do not duplicate. Case 31, November 20th. Satoko Hojo. Let's see, when was this? 1981, so that was 2 years ago, so she would have been 9 years old. Almost 10. Satoko Hojo, 9 years old. Residence? Something, Hinamizawa Village, Shishibone. That was a long car ride. 1. Consultation circumstances. Anonymous telephone SOS of child abuse. Number 2. Abuse situation. Anonymous claims that a female child is suffering physical abuse by adoptive parents, her guardians. Number 3. Family structure. Circle marks abusers. Circle, adoptive father. Circle, adoptive mother. Older brother, child in question. Note: in June 1980, the child's parents died in an accident, and she was given to her uncle on her father's side, her father's younger brother. Number 4. Child Consultation Center's response. On the day of the anonymous telephone consultation, the center called the child's school and asked of her situation. The next day, the welfare officer on duty visited the child's home and heard what they had to say. Both adoptive parents agreed to the center's coaching, contacted anti-abuse network in the city. As part of this suggested coaching, a strict welfare officer in the area began visiting for coaching at fixed intervals. The scrawled note below is stapled to the report. Related information from former official Mr. W. Refer to 1977 document D23, number 44. 44. Ask Chief Investigator F from the city's education consultation offices. He is well informed about it. Kind of an odd note to end on, but I think I'm done for the day. It's a shorter stream, but I have plans in about 20 minutes or so. Well, a little over 20 minutes, not 20 exactly. So I'm going to get a bit of food and do that. I know that we only covered another 2 chapters, but I'm thinking this is probably how it's going to continue to go, so. Pardon me. And thanks for coming to watch. Take care of yourselves. I appreciate that was probably pretty heavy. Yeah, and next time we'll unfortunately have to go deal with more of this, but maybe we can see what Keiichi is going to be able to do for Satoko with his determination. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.